Hello, my name is Cynthia Alice Anderson, and I'm the owner and founder of the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. We are now completing 3 years of being on the air, and I wanted to personally thank you for all of your support. As a listener, as you share the podcast on your social media pages, and for your financial support. We would not be where we are today without this amazing support, which is in over 80 countries and 150,000 downloads worldwide. So I thank you, dear friend. I'm grateful we get to walk this journey together, and I cannot wait to see what we're able to do in another 3 years. Thank you again, dear friend, and blessings on the journey.
Supportek Staffing presents The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 172, The Spiritual Journey of Fred Albers. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to The Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I'm the host, and I'm here today in the field with my good friend and colleague, Fred Albers. Fred, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here. Cynthia Alice. Can I start right off by me calling you Cynthia Alice for the next few minutes is going to be very difficult.
Right. Well, you can call me whatever. Just don't call me late for dinner, as they say.
I would never do that. You know me. I'm really glad that we're doing this.
Me too. Yeah. Thanks for coming on the show. And, usually we're in 818 studios with a real producer and a real soundboard and things like that.
Dave, right?
Dave is my producer. Dave is awesome.
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, I was talking to Dave and I told him I was going to see you. And he said, well, you are taking your Zoom recorder, aren't you? Because I want to hear some from Fred and his journey. And so basically, friends, and to our listeners, we want to welcome you into the show. And we're always so grateful that you join us. Happy Monday to you. And we always love to be the ones to say, welcome to your week. We hope we bring you lots of good energy and spiritual nourishment. And of course, our goal is always to help you grow, prosper, and evolve. And my visit with Fred today is going to be great because we are old friends and we have worked in ministry together for many years. And even though we haven't worked at the same church for many years, I still feel we're in ministry together.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
There's always a connection. There's always some direction that we seem to each go.
Yes.
And just having somebody to talk to about ministry is very, very worthwhile.
Yes.
And you've always been someone that I've really trusted to have a discussion with about what it is that what happens in my ministry at Unity Church of Overland Park.
Yes, and I should say, so Fred Albers is the music director at Unity Church of Overland Park. I forget you don't all know Fred as I do. And that's where we met years ago. I was trying to think that's probably about 20 years ago. Yeah. It was before I was a mom to an incredible son that you just gave an impromptu lesson to.
Yeah.
But music director at Unity of Overland Park. And how long? It's been 25 years you've been there or more?
I've been there. I started playing keyboards there in 1991.
Yeah.
Keyboard. I was hired as the keyboard player by my good friend Richard Held.
Right.
Reverend Dr. Richard Held. So.
Right, who's now a Unity minister up in Linwood, Washington. Yeah. And I'm glad you spoke to that because I think at that time you were working at the conservatory, and I love that you came in to play keyboards in a Unity church, and you were of the caliber, to be teaching at the conservatory level. I know you played piano your whole life, and you've taught, and you've ministered, through music. And I think that entrance into Unity of Overland Park was the beginning, right, of your journey in terms of church music as a career, right?
Absolutely. I had no intention. I was just going to help him out at that point. No intention of making it a career, but it became one. And I'm so glad that it did because it's been really, really, it seems like what I was meant to do. So,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and you're an incredible player too. I mean, you play jazz, you play classical. I mean, put a piece of sheet music in front of you, you can play it. You can conduct an orchestra. You can coach singers. I mean, I've seen you do that. And the band that you created at Unity of Overland Park, which I think we should just call UCOP because that's what we always call it. We're talking UCOP and the band and the musicians there. I mean, there's some of the best musicians in Kansas City that play there.
Yeah.
And you built a family there.
Yeah.
The band was a spiritual family of its own. It was kind of a ministry within a larger ministry.
It's a little micro ministry. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The band is a particular thing. It became, for me, it was my musical mastermind to beat none. It was in working with these guys. I came on. I dabbled in jazz. I practiced jazz, but I wasn't really that kind of a player. But as I was building this group, the guys who were out playing every night, I was such that we had a family, small children, and I always did a day job. And that's why I'm glad I stepped into the church job, because we talked a lot about, my wife and I, you need to be home in the evenings. You can't be out in a club until 2 a.m. That was the choice that I made, that we thought was best for us, and I'm glad we made that choice.
Absolutely. And we should mention, by the way, that you're married and you do have 2 grown kids.
Yes.
And your wife Susan's an amazing, was a career teacher.
Yeah.
And I know that your kids were important. I mean, I've seen pictures of you with your son on the floor playing. And so you were a very engaged and involved dad. Yeah. And what I love about that is, yes, you did make a choice about that. And, your family is the better for it.
Yeah.
Because you were there for them. You were engaged in the kids' lives. More than once, I think I went with you to buy your son black for a concert the day of the concert. Yeah. We would be in a meeting at UCOP and you'd say, "Oh, Jordan just called. I gotta go. I gotta run get him something for the concert." I'd say, "Well, let's go." So we'd pick up Jordan and we'd, run to the store. And, and I think that's important for people to hear. I'm not meaning to slow down your story.
It's important though.
But it's like, what this show, I think so many of our listeners, connect with these soul choices and these soul journeys. And, I think that choice that you make for your family, it's really interesting because as we look at the last year, had you been gigging at night and had you been doing that, providing would have been very difficult.
Yes. And I know lots of musicians, friends of mine, who all of a sudden
had no job.
Yeah. And fortunately, a lot of them, everybody scrambled.
Yes, of course. We all did in our own ways.
Mm-hmm. We all did. Unity Church of Overland Park scrambled, like every ministry. Around the country, around everywhere. So, but we all did. But no, I think the family was I think it's been a good choice.
I think it has been. And now you're about to be a grandpa.
I am about to be a grandpa. August 6th is the date. Got a little one on the way, and we're so excited. But that's, there's one of my teachers, Joanne Baker, at the conservatory, because I was married. I got married just before we moved to Kansas City for me to do graduate work at the conservatory. And Joanne would just say, it's important. It's good that you've got family. It's good that you have to stay connected in the music business. You have to provide for yourself. And a lot of people do it with family. There are many ways to do that, but you've got to be grounded in the real world, so to speak.
Yes. And and I know you have, I certainly have known so many musicians that, are wonderful musicians, but don't have a balanced life. Yeah. They're either living those weird musician hours and not able to make it even financially and other things. And you've really made different choices. Your spiritual journey, like you say, your choice to be home with family and not be, gigging. And of course, being the musician you always had lots of opportunities to play and you took those and those were great, but they were within the confines of, really honoring your family commitment and your commitment as a music director.
Yeah.
And when I first met you, I was thinking back the other day. I mean, we've known each other so long, and in many ways, we're very different people, and in also many ways, exactly the same. Mm-hmm. That, I think we both loved music and loved God, mm-hmm. and that's always been a aspect of our connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
In ministry, and and so you're at UCOP for, like you said, just over 25 years, right?
Well, no, it's been 30 now.
It's been 30 years. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
It's
wow.
been 30 years.
Wow, that is hard to believe.
Yeah.
And I think, your presence there has been so important, because I've seen the church, go up and down numbers wise, members wise, but there's one constant. I've seen ministers come and go. I've seen staff come and go, and there's one constant, and that's Fred Albers.
Yeah.
So I know you've been a real gift to the ministry, and I know the ministry's been a gift to you too and to your life.
It has. It has.
Part of our work together, I barely remember this, but I had somebody contact me the other day that used to be in the choir mm-hmm. that I led there, and I was working with the youth, then, but we started to become friends then, and then we found out about the work of Kenny Werner mm-hmm. through our mutual friend Ken Lovern.
Yes,
and it was you, myself, and another friend. It was in Jill Friedel, now Jill Rogers. Mm-hmm. And we basically meditated every day. And we did all of the meditations. Like, we weren't just doing one. We were doing like the whole...
Well, we would cycle through them.
Yeah, exactly.
The four meditations. And I'm sure your listeners know, because...
because we've had Kenny Werner on.
Kenny's been on. That mm-hmm. was fun to listen to. And but yeah, the four meditations, we would cycle through them. And we would typically, the band... Oftentimes, that last one is 5 minutes about.
Oh yeah, that's a great grounding one.
For big shows, big concerts we would do at the church, the band would sit down in my office and listen to that 5-minute meditation before we went upstairs to do it, and it just kind of got everybody connected, in a little deeper way before we went and played.
Right. And so, friends, for our listeners, the book the meditations we're talking about, we had Kenny Werner. He's author and jazz musician, and the name of his book is Effortless Mastery. Mm-hmm. And I've recommended it my whole career, since I did the meditations, because there's something very special about the meditations, because it does help you find the space in consciousness. And he calls it the space. Some people call it connected. Mm-hmm. Some people call it oneness. But he calls it the space. And when you perform, when you're ministering, when you're speaking, really virtually all of life, the goal is that all of life be lived from this space. And so the reason we meditate is to practice, being in that space. And so, so we did them every day. You did them with the band. And I just wanted, for our listeners, we'll have in the show notes links for you to be able to buy Kenny Werner's book. And then we'll also link to his show. And we're going to have him back on. Because, Fred, I'm not sure if you know that Kenny is putting out another book.
Oh, is he? I didn't know that.
Yeah, another book, and I think more meditations.
Glad I showed up today.
Well, when I reached out to him and told him I had done, I thought, this is a long shot, but I'm going to email Kenny Werner. It's like the 20-year mark. I saw this thing online he was doing, and I thought, I'm just going to reach out to him. And when I reached out to him and told him I had done his work for 20 years and that I was still a minimum of once a week doing one of his meditations, he emailed me back. I was really surprised. I thought, some assistant off somewhere that probably was taking care of all his details would have emailed me. And he emailed me and said, I would like to speak to you. And then later he did have an assistant call. So I was surprised at his openness, but I thought, well, he's living from the space.
Yes.
And here's somebody who said, I've used your work for 20 years. That'd certainly get my attention too. So
I remember I met him.
Yeah, that's right.
At UMKC. I had a friend say, probably Ken Lovern, who called me up and says, Kenny Werner is going to be at UMKC doing a master class. And so I just, got up from my desk in my office at the church, didn't tell anybody, and just, locked the door, turned off the light, drove to UMKC. and listened to him talk to the students there and chatted with him for a minute. And you remember this? I called you as I'm talking to Kenny. Now, how rude is this? And I call you up and going, guess who I'm talking to? And he's looking at me, Yeah. But there were a couple of people, it was one of those conversations. And then I went down to the Blue Room that night because he was playing with his trio. And,
his trio is amazing.
And he was standing, not to do the whole Kenny Werner show, because you've done that, but he was standing around before the show, and I went, there's Kenny just standing over there. I'm going to go talk to him, because you do. When there are people like that around, you want to connect.
You want to connect,
For me, it's like, I don't care like that, people you want to connect to. I mean, that's part of what I took something from you back when we were hanging out all the time, is that you connected with people everywhere. It didn't matter where we were. And I thought, I'm going to go say hello to Kenny. And if he says bug off, I'm going to bug off. And we had a wonderful little conversation before he went and sat down at the piano. And then we had this musical conversation for the rest of the night.
Exactly.
Because he was communicating.
Yes, through the music.
Yeah. So
he's really a special soul. And I it's hard for us to get together and not talk about, his music. And I think it's so important what you're saying, Fred. Several things. One is, and I was telling my son this recently, that the best musicians are always the ones who still want to learn. They're the most humble. They are the most fun to be with, because for them, everything is an adventure.
Yeah.
You want to learn more about your instrument. You want to learn more about how to approach it in a different, fresh way. You want to be alive in your craft. And, that's how I am in my life and in my speaking. It's like, I want to always be learning. I want to be bettering, myself. And I think that has to be what our listeners, are about on their journey.
And isn't it true about everything, though? I mean, and no matter how many times I play How High the Moon, this next time I play it, it will never have been played. That song will have never been played before.
Exactly.
And I think that is what happens. I mean, when I go finish the laundry, all these beach towels. We're sitting in a beach house.
Exactly. How cool is that?
I'm going to finish the laundry. It will never have been finished like that before.
Exactly.
Isn't that?
Yes.
And this, I'm in awe of my life, in that here I am sitting here talking to you. And that's always a treat for me.
Well, how wild is it? Because when we met, when I first, before I even met you, I just left my little resume on your desk. Like, hey, I know we're going to talk someday.
Because here, the connection was, I love this because the connection was already there.
Exactly.
And I found the resume on my desk, and I think maybe you'd left me a voicemail.
I think maybe I had that. I was moving to Kansas City because of ministerial school.
And I was working at least 2 jobs at that point in my life.
Yes, you were. I think you were at the conservatory and at UCOP then.
I think it was at Longview Community College.
Longview Community College, yes.
And I think I just stopped teaching at the conservatory because 3 jobs turned out to be too many.
Well, remember that you kind of hit a wall.
Yeah, I hit a wall.
Yeah.
My body said, Fred, you're not doing this anymore.
You're going down.
And I went down. But I got back up again. But I saw that resume and swear to God, she's going to be here. We're going to work together. There's no reason to call her back right now.
It's done.
It's done, and I just thought, she's coming. And when I get a moment and when it feels right, I'm going to call her. And so we got connected, and I met you, and the rest is...
It's like, hey, you want to go get coffee?
Yeah.
So, friends, we hope you're sitting back and relaxing. I'm not sure if today's show makes any sense to you, but we're having fun. And I hope you're hearing and feeling, our connection, our love for each other, and the work that we do, and just how committed we are to moving our journey forward, with the spiritual work, with our connection. I mean, I think anybody you've been friends with, as long as we have, there's something special there. There's something that inspires each of us. There's some way we're inspiring each other to grow and, and to be more. And I think that's really important. The world needs more of that. So we'll be back with Fred Albers right after these brief messages from our sponsors.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partners, Supportek Staffing. Supportek Staffing is an innovative staffing agency built on the principle of caring about employers and employees as they navigate these new workforce and workplace challenges. If you're an employer, they want to be your human resource partner and help with the changes needed during the pandemic. If you're a candidate, they want to become your lifelong career agent to help you grow into your fullest potential. Supportek prioritizes support over volume, integrity over profits, and will treat your business and your career as if it was their own. You can learn more at supportekstaffing.com. That's SUPPORTEK staffing.com. We now return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello, friends. Welcome back. We're glad you're with us. I'm here with Fred Albers. We are in an undisclosed location.
Yes.
On the coast in Florida.
I'm not even sure where we are.
Well, since when is that new?
Not at all. Not
Getting to the restaurant around the block was a lot of fun.
I always get where I want to go, where I want to be.
I know.
It's oftentimes the circuitous route. I like the scenery of it.
You're so in the moment.
Yeah.
Man.
It's over there somewhere. We'll get there.
It's that direction. Yeah. Well, it's been great having Fred on the show, and we're definitely going to have some music for you coming out of the second half. And we ended, you probably heard a little bit of Fred's music at the end of the first half also. Mm-hmm. And it's nice to be able to have such special humans and musicians, joining us on the show as a gift to us. So, Fred, the thing I'm curious about, we haven't talked much about this lately is, what's your journey like now? Because, and I kind of want to give some background because, we talked about our meditation together. Mm-hmm. You've studied deeply, some spiritual aspects. We need a degree in the Matrix. We've studied it so much as a movie. And in spiritual writings, I know you've gone really deeply. I know you've done, we didn't mention this first half, you've become a Reiki master, mm-hmm. As well. So you're using your hands for healing in a different way, as well. So I'd love for you to just share a little bit about what your journey's been like, in the last few years. What's been interesting to you? Which route have you taken, so to speak?
Interesting question. Can I start with just right now?
Yeah, just start with right now.
To be what am I doing right now? The spiritual piece du jour, sort of. But it's to speak to that. It's this part of my life has always been very, very important, or at least through mm-hmm. Most of my adult life. Mm-hmm. I grew up Catholic,
right?
And there was a very structured Catholicism, and something about it didn't ring right for me. I mean,
right.
My family, they're Catholic, and I love that this works for them. But I always felt like a little bit of the black sheep because it wasn't working for me. And there was time growing up that I had to make it look like it was working.
Yeah, you kind of had to play the game, so to speak.
I had to play the game until I couldn't do that anymore as a young adult.
Yeah.
But right now, I've been through A Course in Miracles twice, and I just do it by myself. Mm-hmm. But it has been something that it does something for me. So
the course is a deep teaching.
Yeah, mm-hmm. It's a long-term study for me. It's a long-term process, and I'm currently back into the workbook and doing that work as part of what it is that I do. Meditation is, it's an everyday thing, and it's if you do it every day. When I do it every day, it develops. Mm-hmm. So my meditations that I do now, just going into the silence, just that, and coming to the deepest, motionless sense of focus that I can attain that mm-hmm. day. It's not always the same. It mm-hmm. can't be, but that's part of what I do, and just the study of how it is that we work. So I'm back reading Frogs into Princes, which is the seminal NLP, neuro-linguistic programming book, and just refreshing myself and going deeper into that. I read it many, many years ago, to get more and more of a sense of how it is that I function, because there are mm-hmm. things that I do that I don't get, I don't understand why I do this, and I don't understand why I do that. And a lot of things I do understand, I know when I'm sitting down at the piano, when I'm approaching it, like if I'm doing along the lines of what Kenny teaches musically, which is, do one thing, get it.
Yeah.
Do the next thing, those sorts of things. I must have modes of working that I've learned, that I've created for myself, that have allowed me to do the work that I do with music. That's a learned process. But the going back and refreshing and reading what these guys are talking about there are these internal processes that are often totally unconscious to us.
Yes.
And if we can get some consciousness around some of those processes, we can begin to do more and more of what it is that we want to do. And also, I can free myself. Another side of what I'm reading about is how as I free myself up, I am more and more able to sit here and have a conversation with you or with Josh or with anybody, with my wife Susan, to become present to my life, which I kind of hinted at a little bit ago.
Yes.
Just being present to my life, being open, surrendering. I'm also reading David Hawkins.
Yes. It's so interesting. Everything you're saying, I've been called into this in the last several months.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, right. Into the chorus. I was just talking with somebody the other day about the work of David Hawkins, because I had the strange fortune of meeting him when I was at Unity Village, and we brought him in, as a
That's right.
presenter. And so, just being around somebody like that and how they operate and all his work around frequencies and consciousness, And so, no, I'm just relating to what you're talking about. And I just wanted to lift up for our listeners, one of the things I'm hearing is it's all really about how do I become more, Sharon Poindexter said it this way, how do I become consciousness?
Yeah. Didn't you just love that woman?
Oh, she still mentors me. Even though she's been passed forever, for 30 years almost.
What a heart.
What a heart and what a gift. And yes, that we're here, to be a blessing on planet Earth. Of course, yes, to be blessed. But to do that, we have to come into consciousness. Yes. We have to, come into full awareness of who and whose, she would say, who and whose we are. And that's what you're, seeking to do through your study. And I think for me, like I say, I'm right along with that. And the other piece for me is just my forgiveness work is really ramped up right now. And my my silence, the deeper breathing. One of the things I just had a wonderful opportunity that, it wasn't a paying opportunity, but it was one of those that it was an honor to get asked to speak for I was a keynote for the International New Thought Alliance conference. And I was really overthinking the message. And because anytime I'm coming into a new setting, I think a little something gets a little kicked off in me, like I want to do a good job and I want to do it right.
Don't we always?
We want to do our best. And I had, done the research. I'd made a mind map. I thought about it. I talked about it. I processed it. And finally, I just shut up and I got quiet and I took 100 deep, deep, deep breaths. And I got up and I was so happy. Yeah. I was like, I am so loved and adored by the universe. Yeah. How could I ever wonder about a 20-minute message? Something I've done hundreds of times. And yet, it's like what you're saying, the unconscious. So I was in my unconsciousness, trying to figure it out, trying to do it right. But as soon as I had to do all my forgiveness too.
You interrupted
the
process in some way. You interrupted the process.
Yes.
And chose consciously a different process.
Right. I interrupted my conditioning, my patterning, from whether it's from childhood, past lives, all of the above, it doesn't really matter. The thing is, it keeps us from the moment. And it was so funny. Once I did those 100 breaths, I did a Sharon Poindexter visualization and then 100 breaths. And feeling so loved and supported by the universe, I just almost laughed out loud at what I was doing, before.
Yeah.
And then I got online early because I wanted to hold consciousness for whatever was happening, before my going on. And Faith Rivera was singing and we had communicated, and that was really ministering to me. And then it was like, I know. And then at that moment, I got everything just downloaded in my mind. It was like, because
it's all there.
Because it was all there. Exactly. And I thought, how often do I do this? That I get in my head, but it's everything you're talking about. It's becoming present to the moment. It is, and seeking to really live, not just be in these old unconscious patterns. It's like, I feel like in many ways for all of us, life can just pass us by because we're stuck in our unconsciousness.
Yeah. And it's that brings up to me, with the pandemic, and how, I was in shock, and people around me in shock, last March, and then we had this whole year of shutdown. But with what you're talking about, as we're all reemerging, and I feel I'm trying to be conscious. I had a voice lesson the other day, and we started working on my first one. We've done these lessons through video,
right, through Zoom,
through Zoom, all these months, and it was the first time I'd gone back into her studio. Drove over. Kelly lives in Lawrence, which is about a 30-minute drive for me, and I drove over, and we're sitting in her studio, and we've already talked our 10 minutes of, getting caught up and being in the same room. And we've been in the same room before because she sings for us.
Right, yeah, and you work together as colleagues.
But we start warming up and going through the processes of doing the vocal warm-ups and all that, which is our routine. And I just said, stop. And I know I'm in a safe space there. I said, I've got to just stop. And because coming back into these things which were so routine before the pandemic is really kicking stuff up for me. And she said, that's what the Kleenex are for. You just take your time,
right,
and get into it. And so part of the lesson was working through some of the issues that I had been having. And and then I noticed my first flight in 2 years, on Monday coming out here, I'm this klutz, and and I'm watching myself, and I'm trying to be as conscious as I possibly can. And you know how hard that is when
you're feeling completely off.
I feel totally self-conscious. I feel like I'm dropping things, I'm bumping people, and everybody's being very nice with me, trying to get on board this plane, and everybody's just being magnanimous. And then me getting off, but I'm going, Fred, just breathe. And so what if you're a klutz? Why don't you just, and when I go back, I fly back tomorrow, I'm going to go, okay, I'm just going to see if I can't breathe through this.
Yeah.
Maybe I will be better at taking, I don't know if I'll do 100.
Start with 50.
I'll start with 50. But maybe as we're standing in line to board the airplane, if I will just breathe. I will just breathe, and I will come into my center and allow this to be another moment. This will be the only time I've ever boarded this plane in this way. Just like How High the Moon.
Yes. Just like anytime you play.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and that, I think sometimes we get the idea, in culture we do, that there's some big thing we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
There's some spiritual teacher telling us they're the next big thing to solve all of our spiritual problems. Take this, do that. Attend this thing. And, that's really about selling. That's not really about the spiritual life. And the spiritual life is really so simple and so personal and so deeply intimate, between us and God. And And I think a lot of our listeners are beginning to, and deepening rather, their practice, as they're listening, because they're discovering, it's not about, it doesn't matter where I go to church. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really matter even what my faith group is. I can be Buddhist. I can be Baptist. I can be, some New Thought Christian. I can think I don't believe in anything at all, but there is still something that we all seek.
Yes.
And so I think we're all learning now that it's not about all this outer stuff. And I think the pandemic was a bit of a gift with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because it certainly shook us up.
It certainly shook us up. Yes.
It was like, to me, it was so, part of it is, well, let me say the first thing first. First things first, right? This was not supposed to happen to me in my life.
Right.
This was so far outside of my realm of possibility that it took me a moment or a couple of months to even deal with reality. Mm-hmm. It's like, because that first month I was a walking zombie. I was working, I was doing all my stuff, and I looked like I was a functioning adult, but inside I'm blasted.
No, and most people were. And I think part of it, we were all just like, what is really happening? And did our leaders fail us? I mean, it was like, there's got to be somebody to blame for this,
and we're still looking for that, but then hopefully you find your center again. And okay, now this is my new reality. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm thinking last July. Okay, this is my new reality. At least for now, this is the way I'm living.
Yes, right, exactly.
Let's see what it is that we're going to do. Let's begin to approach it creatively, right?
Mm-hmm. And let's move in, like you said, consciousness.
Yeah. Yes.
How do I be here in the moment? And so, when I see people on social media, that just has blown up lately, I was jokingly saying, no, people no longer come with clubs. Mm-hmm. They come on social media and try to knock you out of your position. But it doesn't matter who's in the White House. The work is the same. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it doesn't matter who we vote for. What I'm saying is the work is me. Yes. The work is me.
Yeah.
And then if I am doing my work and I'm being a creative center of goodness and truth and peace and love, then everything I do is going to be, charged with this energy. And so I am going to be changing the world.
Yes, you are changing the world. I mean, it's something that a mutual therapist, if I can say that.
Yeah.
Well, we do therapy. But a mutual therapist said to me once, I was talking about how my relationship with Susan was changing. And she goes, oh, so as you're changing, Susan is changing? Huh. Well, imagine that.
Right.
And I hadn't really seen that consciously before, but I believe that how we bring ourselves in to each relationship or to each situation does so much for us, to the whole situation.
I totally agree. And friends, I hope you're connecting with this, because this is meaning a lot to me in my journey, because this is what the work is.
Yeah.
How are you bringing yourself into a room? And we've all walked into a room where there's been an argument and go, I'm leaving, because we felt the energetic vibe. Yeah. Right. We've also come into a room where we go, wow, this feels great. What's that vibe we're holding and we're bringing? It's a wonderful question to ask. And I can't believe we're about out of time. It's going to be a longer show because I have to leave you with some of the meditative piano music that Fred has recorded over the years. And I want you to know, Fred, 2 people in my family have worn out your CD multiple times. I'm keeping you in production with
Where
my
are you getting them?
And my mom, who's since passed, she used to do yoga to your CD. Your first one, I know she loved you too. Yeah. And the Awaken to the Light CD, and then your second one, Revelation. was so, I loved both of them. And my sister is now doing yoga to that every day. So friends, we want to leave you with this. Fred, again, man, thanks for being on the show. It's great to connect and happy to share our friendship and our connection with our listeners all around the world in over 80 countries. So, friends, blessings on the journey. Thank you for all your wonderful support, and enjoy this beautiful piano music from Mr. Fred Albers. Blessings on the journey, dear friends. See you soon.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, presented by Supportek Staffing. This channel is also made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2021 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.